Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable Jefferson nickels that could be sitting in your collection or change jar right now. So, stick around to see if you've got a fortune hiding in plain sight. First up, we explore the value of the Jefferson nickel. 1942 is one of the most iconic and enduring coin designs in American history, and its story dates back to 1938, when it replaced the venerable Buffalo nickel. The coin was initially designed by artist Felix Schlag, with Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, depicted on the obverse. The reverse featured Jefferson's Monticello estate, a symbol of his legacy. However, when we look at the 1942 Jefferson nickel, it stands out for several important reasons. The U.S. Mint struck a wide variety of Jefferson nickels in 1942 due to the need for copper and nickel during World War I, and they introduced a significant change in the coin's composition. The transition to a silver alloy occurred in mid-1942, which led to the creation of two distinct types of nickels that year, the regular nickel and the silver wartime nickel. What makes the 1942 with the S Mint mark special is that it was one of the rarest and most sought, after varieties from that year. The 1942 Jefferson nickel with the S Mint mark is particularly notable for its high-quality minting and striking details. The obverse, featuring Jefferson's portrait, showcases a mature and noble figure. The reverse, depicting Monticello, is rendered with crisp detail. Coins minted in San Francisco S Mint, like this one, tend to have sharper features and finer detail than those from other mints, making them highly desirable for collectors. However, the color shade condition of this coin is what truly makes it stand out in today's market. Coins that are well preserved, with their original colors intact, are extremely rare. The patina that forms over decades of handling gives the coin a unique, almost art-like appearance, with a deep brown or rich gold hue that collectors prize. This particular color shade isn't just a visual trait, it's a product of how the coin was preserved, making it even more valuable. The mintage of the 1942 Jefferson nickel with S Mint mark was relatively high for its era, but its value has risen dramatically over the years due to its unique combination of historical context, design, and condition. The rarity of coins in color shade condition, without heavy wear or damage, further elevates the coin's appeal in the auction market. While most coins from the 1942 series might sell for around $298,000 in average condition, a 1942 Jefferson nickel with an S Mint mark in color shade condition can command prices in the range of $300,000 in the auction market, depending on its condition and the bidding environment. Collectors show great interest in the 1942 Jefferson nickel with the S Mint mark for several reasons. First, its rarity makes it a sought after addition to any collection, especially for those focused on mint varieties. Additionally, the presence of certain die errors from the minting process can further drive the value of a coin. A few known die cracks or repunched mint marks on these nickels have been discovered, adding another layer of intrigue to this piece. Collectors who focus on wartime nickels, particularly the silver alloy nickels, often turn to the 1942 series as a cornerstone of their collection. The S Mint mark further increases demand, and coins in well-preserved color shade condition have a solid place in high-end collections. Next week, the 1959 Monticello Jefferson nickel marks a significant moment in U.S. coinage history. By this time, the nickel had gone through various design changes, and it would continue to evolve in the years to come. The 1959 coin is part of the regular series, which was struck at the U.S. Mint without major changes in its design since the mid-1930s. The 1959 Jefferson nickel features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with a depiction of his estate, Monticello, on the reverse. What makes this particular nickel so special is not only its design, but the large date variety, which is easily recognizable by the slightly bigger digits in the date compared to earlier versions. The D Mint mark indicates that this coin was minted in Denver, one of the primary locations for coin production in the U.S. The large date version is slightly rarer than the standard date, which adds to its value. The design of the 1959 Jefferson nickel is fairly simple, yet timeless. The large date on the obverse was a production variation, as the U.S. Mint sometimes experimented with different styles in their minting process. The reverse, showcasing Monticello, remains one of the most recognizable architectural symbols on U.S. currency. However, the black color shade in the dirty condition of this coin is what catches the eye of collectors. Often, dirty coins are looked down upon, but in this case, the black color shade adds a unique historical element. The wear and tarnish, combined with the dirt that is accumulated over decades, tell a story of a coin that has been well traveled and handled. Coins with this kind of character are often in high demand by collectors looking for rare, distinctive items for their collections. The 1959 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is still fairly common in general circulation, but the large date variety, especially in dirty condition with black shading, is much rarer. In today's auction market, most 1959 Jefferson nickels in good condition are valued at around $39,200, but the rare large date version in dirty condition can fetch anywhere between $40,000, depending on its exact state. Though it may not seem like much in comparison to some of the rarest U.S. coins, this particular version of the nickel has seen a steady rise in value over the past few years. As more collectors focus on completing their collections with rare and unusual varieties, the 1959 Jefferson nickel continues to grow in value. Many collectors of Jefferson nickels are particularly drawn to mint errors, and the 1959 large date is no exception. Though errors on the 1959 coins are less common, those that do exist can often result in dramatic price increases at auction. In terms of collector interest, the dirty, black-shaded condition adds a layer of mystery and historical context to the coin. This makes it more appealing to collectors who appreciate coins with a history, not just pristine examples. Next up, the 1943 Jefferson nickel with the S mint mark is a unique coin that piques the interest of many collectors. Produced during World War I, this nickel features the famous design of Thomas Jefferson, and its place in history is firmly tied to the production of wartime coins. In 1943, the United States faced severe shortages of materials due to the ongoing global conflict. The government had to adjust coinage to support the war effort. This year's Jefferson nickel, however, was not just a standard release. It was minted during an era of extreme economic conditions. As a result, several changes in coin production were implemented to preserve critical metals. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was made with a higher percentage of silver due to the war's metal demands. While most of the 1943 Jefferson nickels were minted in Philadelphia with a P mint mark, the San Francisco Mint struck a smaller batch, marked with the S mint mark. The damaged condition of this particular coin, which you may come across in auction markets, adds an extra layer of intrigue. The obverse of the 1943 Jefferson nickel features a portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, designed by Felix Schlag, who won a competition to design the coin. Jefferson is depicted in profile, facing left, a design that has become iconic. The reverse shows Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia estate, symbolizing his connection to the founding of the United States. The S mint mark was stamped just below Monticello. When we talk about a damaged color condition coin, we're referring to a nickel that has been altered or worn due to heavy handling, corrosion, or environmental exposure. This particular 1943 nickel, despite its damage, holds a high value due to its unique characteristics. Damage can include discoloration, scratches, or dents, which only add to the coin's individual story. However, despite these conditions, the historical context of the coin elevates its worth in today's market. The 1943 S.A. Jefferson nickel in good condition typically sells for a moderate price, but a coin in damaged color condition may see significant value in the auction market, especially if it's rare. Depending on the degree of the damage and how collectors perceive its rarity, it could fetch anywhere from $400,000 in the auction market. Coins that exhibit unique environmental damage often attract collectors who are interested in coins with distinct histories. The key for this coin is not just its physical state, but its rarity and historical significance. This coin does not feature traditional mint errors, but the unique condition itself. Corrosion or wear over the years could be considered an anomaly of sorts. Collectors are often drawn to these coins for their unusual nature and the potential for uncovering unexpected historical significance. This is the perfect coin for enthusiasts who like to dig deeper into numismatic mysteries. Next up, the 1945 Jefferson nickel with the S mint mark is another valuable coin from the World War II era. This coin, minted during a period when the USA was still deeply involved in the global conflict, offers a great example of how wartime coinage reflects both economic circumstances and artistic design. The 1945 Jefferson nickel came at the tail end of the war, and although the country was preparing for peace, the coin's composition still reflected the earlier wartime shortages. Nickel, which was traditionally used for producing these coins, was replaced in the production of some wartime coins by other metals to conserve resources. As a result, the 1945 Jefferson nickel is one of the last to feature the traditional nickel composition before the U.S. returned to standard copper, nickel alloys. The S mint mark on the 1945 Jefferson nickel signifies that it was minted at the San Francisco Mint, one of the more prominent mints in the U.S., and home to several important coin releases. The presence of the S mint mark is vital for collectors, as these coins tend to have lower mintage figures compared to their Philadelphia counterparts. The obverse features Thomas Jefferson in a slightly different style compared to other nickels in the series. On the reverse, we again see Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson, this time with its distinct architectural features. The large date of 1945 is another unique feature of this coin, as it makes the year stand out compared to other earlier mintings, where the date is often smaller and less noticeable. Color-shaded circulated condition refers to a coin that has been circulated with noticeable wear, but has also been exposed to elements that give it an unusual toning or color. Over time, coins take on hues that reflect their age and the environments they have been in. This particular 1945 Jefferson nickel is marked by the coloration it has gained during circulation, which adds to its unique appeal in the market. The 1945 S. Jefferson nickel is among those with relatively higher value compared to other nickels of the era due to its rarity and mint mark. Depending on its condition, a typical coin in this category may fetch anywhere from $266,000 in the auction market, with coins in better condition likely selling for even higher prices. Those with unique color shades or tonal features could be of even more interest to collectors. The primary appeal for collectors is the S mint mark and the large date, but what sets this coin apart is the unique color shading, which could indicate exposure to environmental factors such as moisture or air, adding character and rarity. Collectors are often drawn to such coins because they are not just items of monetary value, but pieces of history that tell their own stories. Next up, the 1947 Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history as part of the Jefferson nickel series, which was first introduced in 1938. Designed by Felix Slag, this series replaced the older Buffalo nickel and has been a staple of U.S. coinage ever since. The 1947 Jefferson nickel came after World War II, a period when the U.S. economy was transitioning from wartime rationing to a more stable peacetime economy. The series itself features Thomas Jefferson, the third U.S. president, on the obverse, and the home where Jefferson lived, Monticello, on the reverse. This design has remained mostly unchanged over the years, with some variations in mint marks and metals due to changes in the economy and wartime needs. By 1947, the United States had emerged from YE, and there was a demand for coinage to be returned to regular production. The mintage of the 1947 Jefferson nickel was robust, but certain conditions and errors have led to the coin being highly valued today, especially in rare grades like very fine. On the obverse, the 1947 Jefferson nickel showcases a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third U.S. president, with his characteristic dignified expression. The coin's reverse side features Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, a symbol of the country's early years. The most notable feature of the 1947 Jefferson nickel is the absence of a mint mark on the coin. For those unfamiliar with mint marks, these small letters, D small letters, D, S, etc., denote where the coin was minted. A coin without a mint mark is typically a product of the Philadelphia Mint, which in this case produced a significant number of the 1947 Jefferson Nickels. The coin's composition is 75 copper and 25 nickel, which gives it a distinct color and shine. When looking at this coin, collectors focus on the sharpness of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello, especially in higher grades. The 1947 Jefferson nickel, like many coins from this era, was minted in large numbers, but it's important to understand that the value of this coin today depends heavily on its condition and the demand in the collector market. In 1947, the U.S. Mint produced a large quantity of Jefferson Nickels, but as time goes on, coins in better condition are more valuable. The mintage of this coin was over 100 million, which makes it a relatively common coin in lower grades. However, when in very fine condition, the coin becomes quite desirable. As of today's market, the 1947 Jefferson nickel in very fine condition can fetch between $94,000 at auction, depending on the specific auction or marketplace. The price can increase further if the coin is exceptionally well preserved or has other unique characteristics. For collectors, error coins are often among the most desirable. The 1947 Jefferson nickel does not have as many notable errors as other coins, but there are always slight variations that can increase its value. Errors such as double strikes, off-center strikes, or die cracks can turn an otherwise standard coin into a highly coveted item. This coin has garnered interest due to its historical value, and collectors of Jefferson Nickels often seek out specimens that represent various years of the series. The 1947, in particular, is appealing due to its vintage and relatively low mintage numbers in higher grades. Collectors of post-YE coinage value this coin for its representation of a country in transition and for the design work that still holds cultural and historical significance today. Next up, the 1941 Jefferson nickel, like the 1947 version, was part of a key period in U.S. history. The United States was still entrenched in World War II, and coinage production was affected by metal shortages. During the early years of YE, nickel was in high demand for the war effort, and the U.S. Mint had to adjust coin production accordingly. The 1941 Jefferson nickel was produced in large quantities, with millions of coins minted that year. Its design was typical of the era, featuring the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the Auburson Monticello on the reverse. While this coin may not have been as rare at the time, today certain variations have become highly valued by collectors. The 1941 Jefferson nickel features the well-known design of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with the inscription "In God We Trust" above and "Liberty" to the left. The reverse showcases Monticello, which continues to be one of the most iconic images on U.S. coinage. For collectors, the coin's condition is everything. While many 1941 Jefferson Nickels are available in lower grades, the value increases significantly when the coin is in fine or very fine condition. The 1941 version, like others from this series, is typically found in circulated conditions, meaning it has been in regular use by the public. In the case of the coin you're asking about, this particular 1941 Jefferson nickel features circulated damage on the reverse side, which significantly impacts its value. Despite this, it is still a popular item in the market due to its historical significance and rarity in certain conditions. The 1941 Jefferson nickel, without a mint mark, had a substantial mintage. Over 120 million of these coins were produced, making them relatively common in lower grades. In circulated condition with damage to the reverse side, the value of this coin would be minimal compared to a well-preserved specimen. At auction, a 1941 Jefferson nickel with reverse damage can typically sell for between $10,000 depending on the extent of the damage and the overall desirability in the collector market. The damage reduces the overall market price, but collectors still seek out coins from this era for their historical value. Collectors are particularly interested in the condition of the coin, especially if the damage is unique or adds to the coin's story. While this particular 1941 Jefferson nickel may not be considered rare due to its condition, there are always opportunities for collectors to find coins with interesting error types. A Jefferson nickel with an interesting reverse error or other minting abnormalities, like a double die or off-center strike, would likely attract higher interest at a higher price tag, even if it's in a lower grade. Despite its damage, this coin remains valuable in the sense that it represents a crucial year during the Second World War, and many collectors appreciate the historical connection. Next up, the 1944 Jefferson nickel is part of the ongoing series of nickels that have been issued since 1938. The 1944 coin, however, holds special significance for collectors due to the context in which it was produced. World War II. During this period, the U.S. government was facing severe metal shortages because of the war effort. This led to the use of different metals in the minting of coins. In particular, the minting of Jefferson nickels was altered due to the war. Most nickels from this period were made from a mixture of copper, manganese, and nickel instead of the usual copper and nickel mixture. The design of the 1944 Jefferson nickel features the well-known profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, designed by Felix Schlag. The obverse displays Jefferson's portrait, while the reverse shows his home, Monticello, symbolizing Jefferson's contributions to the nation. The addition of "In God We Trust" became a more prominent feature in later years, though the 1944 series continued with designs that were already in place prior to the war. The mintage of the 1944 Jefferson nickel was considerable, with the total number of coins produced at just over 119 million. The large date version without the PP mint mark is especially interesting because, typically, the coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint did not carry a mint mark until the 1980s. The large date variety is rare because of its slightly different die used during production, which was less common and typically considered an error variety, enhancing its value. The 1944 Jefferson nickel in very fine condition has gained notable attention in recent years for its rarity and its historical significance. At auction, these coins in very fine condition can command prices ranging from $29,500, depending on factors such as the precise level of detail remaining, toning, and other factors influencing the coin's grade. But what truly makes this coin incredibly valuable is the added collector interest in the mint mark error. The rarity of the 1944 without a mint mark in particular has spiked collector demand, driving its price up even further. The error variety of this coin, in which it lacks the mint mark, is particularly attractive to error, coin enthusiasts and collectors. The absence of the P mint mark, which would normally signify that the coin was minted in Philadelphia, makes it an anomaly. As collectors delve deeper into the error market, the demand for these coins has steadily increased. Collectors are particularly fond of this coin because it represents a moment in history when the production process was altered due to wartime demands. Collectors also look for the coin's overall condition, and those in very fine condition, showing wear but still retaining clear features, fetch top dollar. Those who are able to find this rare version in uncirculated or higher grades may even find themselves looking at coins worth hundreds of dollars at auction, especially if they can prove the coin's provenance and ensure that it is genuine. Next up, the 1949 Jefferson nickel is a crucial part of the series and falls within the years of consistent production post. Why? The U.S. was recovering from wartime constraints and coin production was slowly returning to normal as the country's economy stabilized. The Monticello series, launched in 1938, depicted Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, with the Monticello building on the reverse, symbolizing the Founding Fathers' legacy. The 1949 issue came after the large changes in coin composition that took place during the war, so it marked a return to standard minting procedures, with copper and nickel being used again for the coins. The 1949 Jefferson nickel retained the familiar design that was introduced in 1938, with Jefferson's portrait on the obverse and the Monticello building on the reverse. The reverse design is highly significant as it represents the home of Jefferson in Virginia. What sets the 1949 Jefferson nickel apart from other years is the lack of a mint mark, making it notable and attractive to collectors who are focused on mint mark varieties. The total mintage of the 1949 Jefferson nickel reached over 50 million, a fairly substantial number. However, when considering the number of these coins that are still in circulation or have survived in good condition, the availability of high-quality 1949 Jefferson nickels in fine condition is much lower. This adds to the appeal and rarity of these coins, especially without the mint mark, which was commonly used for coins minted at the Philadelphia Mint. In today's market, a 1949 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in fine condition can be worth anywhere between $30 and $100. Prices can vary depending on factors like coin toning, preservation, and the overall rarity of the individual coin within the collector community. The fine-grade coins are typically the ones that will fetch higher values because they are much less common compared to the average circulated coin. However, much like the 1944 nickel, the scarcity of these coins in fine condition has caused collectors to hunt for these specific examples. Coin auctions and dealer markets often report a demand for coins with certain historical features, like this 1949 Jefferson nickel. Error collectors are particularly fond of the 1949 Jefferson nickel because the absence of a mint mark is a unique feature. This could indicate a slight mistake during the minting process, or simply an anomaly that collectors are excited to find. Since the mint mark was often omitted from coins during this time, the 1949 coins without mint marks are seen as rare, and therefore they are highly coveted by error coin collectors. Moreover, collectors who focus on the Jefferson Nickels series value this particular year because it fits into the post-war context and is seen as a representation of American coinage's return to normalcy after the disruptions of the war. Next week, the 1969 Jefferson nickel, particularly the large date variety without a mint mark, stands as a rare and highly sought after coin in the world of numismatics. With a striking design and an intriguing history, this nickel has earned a reputation for its scarcity and value, especially in very fine condition. Let's take a deeper look into its background, design features, and why it commands such high prices in today's auction market. The Jefferson nickel, first introduced in 1938, was designed by Felix Schlag and initially featured the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, a lasting tribute to one of America's founding fathers. However, by 1969, this coin had been in circulation for over 3 decades, and while many might assume that all Jefferson nickels are relatively common, some specific years have proven to be incredibly rare and valuable, one more so than the 1969 large date variety. The 1969 large date Jefferson nickel was part of a series of nickels minted in the late 1960s, a decade marked by economic turmoil in the U.S. Mint's effort to adjust its coinage to the growing demands of the nation. The large date on the 1969 coin was a result of changes in the minting process, and it immediately became apparent that the larger digits stood out more clearly than the previous year's coins. On the obverse of the 1969 Jefferson nickel, you'll see the familiar image of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, facing to the left. This was a notable departure from the earlier Liberty head designs that had graced U.S. coins. Jefferson's profile is accompanied by the words "In God We Trust" and the mint year of 1969. The word liberty and the phrase "E pluribus unum," out of many, one appear on the coin, maintaining the tradition of representing the nation's ideals. On the reverse side of the coin is a depiction of Monticello, Jefferson's beloved plantation home in Virginia, which was chosen as the symbol to represent Jefferson's legacy. The words Monticello appear above the building, with 5 cents and United States of America along the bottom. The most important distinguishing feature of the 1969 coin is the size of the digits in the date. The large date variety features numerals that are noticeably larger and more pronounced than those of previous years. In addition, these coins were struck at multiple mints, and the absence of a mint mark on this particular version is one of the factors that adds to its rarity. The 1969 Jefferson nickel has a total mintage of around 485 million coins, which sounds like a large number but isn't necessarily reflective of the coin's value in the market today. This is because the 1969 large date variety, specifically those without a mint mark, stands out as a rare variation that's far more difficult to find in good condition. While the 1969 nickel is still somewhat common in circulation, finding one in very fine or better condition, especially without a mint mark, is quite challenging. Coins that are well preserved, particularly those with a sharp date and clean details on Monticello, are highly prized by collectors. In today's auction market, The value of a 1969 Jefferson nickel in very fine condition can range anywhere from $26,000 depending on its specific grade and appeal. Coins in higher grade conditions can command prices that exceed $200 or more, especially if they are graded by reputable grading agencies like the NGC or PGs. For example, a 1969 large-date Jefferson nickel in Mesa 65 mint state or higher can fetch anywhere from $27,000, however. It's important to note that the real value of the coin is often determined by factors such as the coin's exact condition, the clarity of the date, and how well the design elements have been preserved. The 1969 large-date Jefferson nickel without a mint mark holds special interest for collectors not just because of its rarity, but because it is often linked to a historical minting error. In the case of this coin, some of the 1969 nickels were struck with improperly aligned dies, which can cause slight variations in the coin's design. These errors are always highly desirable because they are even more difficult to find and can significantly increase a coin's value. Another reason for the increased collector interest in this coin is its connection to the broader movement of nickel collectors in the U.S. Numismatics enthusiasts love collecting nickels from different years and mint varieties, and coins like the 1969 large date are considered key pieces in many collector's sets. This is one of the reasons why this coin, even in its relatively everyday condition, still manages to sell for such high prices at auction, especially if it's in a rare or error. Crone's state of thanks for joining us. Happy collecting.